Next, I'm honored to welcome Congressman Buddy Carter from Georgia's 1st Congressional District. Congressman Carter is a longtime friend of National Clean Energy Week and a leading voice on clean energy policy. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Buddy Carter.
Thank you. Well, thank y'all. Thank y'all for having me here tonight, and thank you again for dinner last night. I tell people all the time, if you'll feed us, we'll come. So we truly enjoyed that, but I do appreciate the opportunity to be here and the opportunity to talk about clean energy because it is important. As many of you know, I serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee as well as the Budget Committee, and my role on the Energy and Commerce Committee is very important to me. Obviously, as a professional pharmacist, I'm interested in healthcare, but I'm interested in everything that we do in energy and commerce. And as all of you know, we do a lot. We touch everything. As I think the infamous former chair, John Dingell, said, if it moves, it's energy. If it doesn't, it's commerce, or just the opposite, whatever it was. But anyway, it is true. We do cover a very diverse area and certainly a lot of things. And certainly energy is part of it. I have the honor and privilege of representing the 1st Congressional District of Georgia, which includes the entire coast of Georgia, over 100 miles of pristine coastline, Savannah, Sea Island, that area. We have 2 major seaports, the Port of Savannah and the Port of Brunswick. The Port of Savannah is the number 3 container port in the country and the fastest growing port in the country. The Port of Brunswick is the number 1 roll-on, roll-off port in terms of autos and trucks that are coming through that port. So we're very proud of that. Have a strong military presence as well as a strong forestry and a strong ag presence as well. It is also my home. It's where I've lived all my life and where I intend to live the rest of my life. And I tell people all the time, you know, I think it's unfair, and I'm glad I heard that John Curtis was here before, and I appreciate him. He's a good friend. And he really created and started the Conservative Climate Caucus in the House, and I appreciate his efforts in doing that before he went over to the dark side, but nevertheless, he did do that, and it is very important because I think Republicans sometimes get labeled wrongly as being against the environment or that we don't care about the environment. Look, some of my fondest memories growing up are going fishing with my dad. We lived on the coast. We went fishing a lot, and those are my fondest memories, and I want my children to still have those experiences. I want my grandchildren to have those experiences. And so it is very important to me. I do believe in climate change. I believe climate change is real, and I believe that man has an impact on it. Now, I am not one of those who subscribes to the theory that if we don't have it fixed by day after tomorrow, we're going to all fry. But at the same time, I do understand that we need to be doing our best to take care of our environment. And that is very important to me, particularly, as I say, because of where I've grown up on the coast. Now, let's talk about Georgia real quick, because I think Georgia is a great case study in what we have done in the way of making sure we have clean energy. Right now, we have the largest clean energy plant in America at Plant Vogtle. The nuclear plant at Plant Vogtle is the largest supplier of clean energy in the country. As you know, we've recently expanded that, the first time that that's happened in over 30 years when we built reactors number 3 and 4. And I think it's important to note, and I hope that you understand this and that you know this, is that, yes, it was expensive, but if you look at the savings between the time that reactor 3 was built and reactor 4 was built, they were significant. What I'm trying to say here is that we learned a lot of important lessons, and that is important, and I think will serve well in the nuclear industry for days to come and in the future. So that's very important for us. Right now, in the state of Georgia, nuclear energy is providing almost a third of all of our energy in the state of Georgia. Between Plant Vogtle and Plant Hatch in my district, it's providing almost 33% of all the energy in the state of Georgia. Because Georgia has been the number 1 state in which to do business for 11 years in a row, we need every electron we can get. And that's why I believe in an all-of-the-above type energy strategy. Look, right now it's predicted that in the next decade, the next 10 years, Georgia's probably going to need about 9,500 more megawatts of power. If you look at Plant Vogtle by itself, it's providing about 4,500. So what that means is that in the next 10 years, we're going to need 2 Plant Vogtles, the equivalent of that. And that's something that we take very seriously. We want to continue to grow. We want to continue to be the #1 state in which to do business. And one of the reasons we've been successful is also why we need to prepare for the future, and that is because we have had clean and we've had reliable and we've had affordable energy, and that's very important. We are also in the state of Georgia, the #7 state in terms of solar power, and I think that's important to note as well. #7 in solar power. We don't have a lot of wind power at this point, and I don't suspect that's going to be a big part of our future, but we do have a lot of solar. We do have a lot of nuclear. We're going to have, right now, natural gas is providing about 40, well, let me correct myself. Last year, natural gas provided about 40% of our energy needs in the state of Georgia. It is predicted this year it's going to be up to 44%. So natural gas is going to be a big part of what we do in that as well. Now, a couple of other things. First of all, what we've done in Congress. All of you are aware of what we did with the Working Families Taxpayers Cut Act, and that was very important. You may know it as the One Big Beautiful Bill. We're trying to get away from calling it that and calling it now the Working Families Taxpayers Cut Act. So that is... You may know that, of course, some of the subsidies, some of the credits went away for clean energy. Now, I was one of the ones, I believe at the first letter, there were 21 of us who signed that letter asking leadership to be careful and to look at what we were eliminating in those tax credits. When you look at the 45Y, when you look at the 45U, we asked them to make sure that we didn't just take a sledgehammer to it, but instead we took a scalpel to it. And we made sure, because I would submit to you, and this is what I tried to sell leadership on, is that if it is stabilizing our supply chain, if it is resulting in more domestic manufacturing, then why wouldn't we want to look at it? Why wouldn't we want to keep it? That was very important for us. Now, a lot of them did go away, but at least there was a glide path for some of them. And I might add that the nuclear credits stayed, and that's very important, and it was very important to me. Plant Vogtle would not have been built if it had not been for the partnership with the federal government, and that was very important. So we were able to keep that in there. Now, one other thing that I want to mention, because as I said earlier, I had the pleasure of being with you last night and heard Bruce Westerman and Jared Golden and appreciate their efforts on the SPEED Act. Permitting is something we've got to address in this country. Folks, I don't care what sector of our economy you're talking about, whether you're talking about health care, whether you're talking about energy, or whether you're talking about technology. When people come into my office, they always tell me the same thing. Permitting, regulations, it's crushing us. We've got to address this in our country, and it's one of the big priorities of this current administration, and it's going to be one of the big priorities of ours in Congress. We've got to address permitting. I want to give you an example, and I don't think this is apples and oranges. I think this is relevant. I mentioned the Savannah Port. We deepened that port recently. We finished that project of deepening it from 42-foot depth to 47-foot depth in order to accommodate the post-Panamanic ships that were coming through the Panama Canal after they deepened that canal. We did that project, and we finished it in March of 2022. The permitting for that project started in 1996. Now, again, I don't think that's apples and oranges. I think that's relevant. I think that tells you we got a problem here. Now, look, does that mean that we don't pay attention to the environment? We just skip over some things? No, that's not what it means. But I would submit to you, just because it takes a long time to get a permit does not necessarily mean that you've done everything you should have done. Those two things don't go hand in hand in my mind. You can do, and we can do, a better job of making sure we protect our environment and increase and improving and speeding up the permitting process. They are not two distinct entities. They can be both. You can have both. You can have growth. You can have economic development, and you can protect our environment at the same time. I'm convinced we can do that. But we've got to address that. That's why I'm very excited about the SPEED Act and what Chairman Westerman and what Jared Golden are doing. I look forward to that. We are also looking at it in the Energy and Commerce Committee. Scott Peters has got a bill that we're trying to work out whether we're going to get on it with him or not. And we'd love to if we can work out just a few things. But we are looking at it in the Energy and Commerce Committee as well, because it is something that we've got to address. So that's where we're at. That's what we've been doing, and that's what the future holds for us. The moral of the story is this. In the state of Georgia, we're going to need every electron we can get. We understand that. We are already busting loose with data centers, and we got more that want to come to our state. In order to accommodate them, we are going to need every electron that we can get. And we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that's going to be able to deliver affordable, reliable, and clean energy. So thank you for having me here today. Thank you for being here, and thank you for what you're doing. You wouldn't be here if you didn't care, and I appreciate that very much. Look, I grew up less than a mile from the Savannah River. It's a big part of my life, and I love the environment. I grew up fishing. I grew up hunting. All of that is extremely important, and I want to protect the environment just like you want to protect the environment, but I want to continue to have our economy grow. And if we're going to do that, we're going to have a fair balance of what we are offering in the way of reliable, affordable energy. So thank you very much for having me here today.